all of our massive crowd. Thank you also very much for coming to the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Fund Advisory Committee. I'd like to go ahead and call our meeting to order. We have quite a few things to get through, but before that, I'd like to have our robust committee introduce themselves, and then we will get down to the business at hand, starting with Richard.
Richard Moncure, Director of the STREAM program at St. Margaret's School in Tappahannock, Virginia.
I'm Annie Kupka. I'm the at-large supervisor for King George County, Virginia. I also have the tags myself on my vehicle, and I also in 2016 received a grant from the fund for Potomac Elementary School.
And I'm Mamie Locke. I represent kind of right now through the end of whatever, the 2nd Senate District, but will, since being elected or re-elected, represent the 23rd Senate District, which is Hampton and Newport News.
I'm Delegate David Reed. I currently represent the 32nd District, which is the eastern portion of Loudoun County, and after the re-election and redistricting, I'll now be representing the 28th District.
Okay. Staff members?
I'm Jillian Conway. I'm the clerk for the committee.
I'm the Virginia Director for the Chesapeake Bay Commission, and I serve as a subject matter expert for the committee.
Waller, I am DLS staff. Thank you.
Again, thank you all so very much. And the reason we're here today is to consider and recommend projects for grants. We have a total of $254,405 in funds that are available. And of course, this comes from the sale of the Chesapeake Bay license plate. However, we have almost $500,000 in application requests, and we have 57 applications to go through here this morning. So we're going to go ahead and get started on those. So, ladies, let's roll through. Beginning with application number 1, which is from the Williamsburg Montessori School. And they're seeking funds for middle school students to embark on a Chesapeake Bay journey. In their aquaculture and bay studies class, the students will engage in community service work that promotes the health of the bay, learn about the creatures and processes of the bay and bay habitats, and share what they learn with others. And they are requesting a total of $4,250. So, any questions or discussion on this proposal?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I had a question. I guess my concern is there really is not much information in this application with regard to how many students this will actually serve. That was my issue with this one. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? I had written that down as well. It just said students. Any other questions? No recommendation on this one?
I have a recommendation.
Okay.
All right, given the lack of clarity on the number of students to be served, as well as a lack of long-term evaluation metrics for the application, staff recommended no funding for this proposal.
Thank you. So we have a recommendation of no funding on this one. Is there a second to this recommendation?
I'll second that.
Okay.
And I do have a question. Do we generally then provide follow-up to these applicants that are like first time go, okay, next time can you provide more clarity?
Yes, that is something that DLS staff in their letter to to the applicants, lets them know what the concerns were with the application. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposite? Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to our second applicant, which is the Headwaters Soil and Water Conservation District. Headwaters is seeking funds to purchase a new watershed enviroscape model plus a carrying case. This model will allow students to observe and simulate the interactions of precipitation and the impacts they have on streams, lakes, water supplies, and groundwater for a total of $1,500. Any questions or concerns here?
Madam Chair, I'd like to offer, I have experience using this Enviroscape model from when I led the garden club at Potomac Elementary School for several years. So there is value in having the model. I'm just not sure if the project is developed enough to explain how they would implement the use of the model in hands-on experiences and how many, children would benefit from it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns about this particular proposal?
Madam Chair, I'm also familiar with the Enviroscape. I'm not familiar with the cost of the Enviroscape or the cost of a case for an Enviroscape, but I do know that we are likely to be pinching pennies. And if we had any insight maybe from staff on the cost for those, I'd sure be willing to listen. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm not personally familiar with the cost of an Enviroscape, but staff did have similar concerns about the lack of a robust program build-out and evaluation techniques with this proposal.
Okay. So do we have a motion on this one?
Madam Chair, I'll move to decline to fund.
Okay. Do we have a motion to decline?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded that we not fund Headwaters Soil and Water Conservation District's proposal. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We're now moved to request number 3 from the Virginia Tech University, and they are asking to continue with their previous grant application for their 4-H extension project, which funds their watershed education in 6th grade classrooms and for the environmental programming of the 4-H Water Wizards Day Camp. And this day camp is a bay grass restoration and service learning project and in-school science SOL enrichment lesson. The funding will be used to update the school program supplies, day camp supplies, and charter boat fees. And this is a request for $1,900.
And am I understanding by looking at this that we're talking about that this is going to provide outreach to approximately 200 youth?
Yes. In the 4-H program, and it's a day camp.
And this is a program that, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, this is a program that we have funded partially in the past. Is that correct?
Correct.
Does staff have a recommendation on this?
We gave them $10,000 in 2023, correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, staff recommended funding this application, but would appreciate more details from the applicant in the future.
I would make that motion then.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we fund the Virginia Tech project for $1,900. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so that's $1,900 gone. Okay. Okay, our fourth project is from Friends of the Occoquan. Continuing with their previous grant application, the Friends of the Occoquan seek funding to increase the involvement of students and the public in the Chesapeake Bay conservation and restoration activities, and they will use the funds for supplies and equipment, and will fund a project manager. And they're looking for $8,000, and they have been previously funded in the past, several times.
Now, if I remember right, Madam Chair,
Right.
if I remember right, I mean, are they specifically asking for $8,000 to fund a project manager? Because I thought that we did not fund staff or salaries. Is that correct?
That's correct. And
Madam Chair, I noted the same, and that my suggestion was to fund it less the $2,500 requested for the project manager. Thank you.
Oh, I see. So they're asking for $8,000, which $2,500 is for a project manager, $2,500 is for supplies, and $3,000 for the other items.
Right.
So then your recommendation, if I'm doing the math right, would be $5,500. I would be supportive of that. So I would second that motion, if that's a motion.
is that, yeah. Mhm. Okay. So the motion is to fund Friends of the Occoquan at an amount of $5,500.
Right, and I seconded that.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay, so that one is at 5,500.
Is somebody keeping a running total? Okay.
Okay, when we hit that number. Okay, the next request comes from North Branch School. North Branch School is seeking funding to take 3 teachers and 18 middle school students to Port Isabel West, where they will learn about the cultural significance of the waterways and fishing villages and the ecology of the bay, where they will explore wetlands, underwater grass beds, and oyster reefs. And they're asking for $1,038.
I mean, that seems consistent with what the goals of this, of what the program is for, so. Is there a staff recommendation? And it also looks like that they're only asking for about 1/3 of the total cost, so they're,
Correct. Yeah, they're, it's an extremely reasonable request, given, you know, the substantial match that is being proposed by the applicant. There's a lot of engagement, alignment to SOL standards, and it's a small amount of funding for a large impact, so staff recommends
And it's
full
their
funding.
first request.
so I'll make a motion to support this request.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded that we support North Branch School at the amount of $1,038. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so we now move down to item number 6 from James City County Department of Parks and Rec. They're asking for continuing funding for their educational program to children. They're seeking funding to extend outdoor and environmental education programs to every child who attends their camps and programs at no additional cost to families. And the request is for $9,160.
And this is the same amount that we funded last year, correct?
Last year, right.
And do we have any input? I mean, is this going well? I mean, is it well received?
We received final reports thank you. We received final reports from all of the applicants, and from James City County, we received their reports, and the grant funds are doing well.
Okay.
How many kids did this serve?
Madam Chair, my notes have 355 students being touched.
really seems like a good program.
Madam Chair, I would move for approval of the request. In addition to the number of students, I really like that they also are able to work with the at-risk and the special needs populations as well.
Right.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded that we support the James City County Department of Parks and Recreation in the amount of $9,160. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay. Moving right along to a name I cannot pronounce, Potomac?
Potomac,
Potomac,
yeah.
you sure?
I think it's just,
Okay.
I think it's the Native American spelling of Potomac.
Okay, Potomac Elementary School, requesting continuation of their previous grant application. And this is a school in Loudoun County. They're seeking to implement a Down by the Bay educational program that's taking place in the school library that will bring the Chesapeake Bay to the school students. The funds will be utilized to purchase books and activities for each library learning center in the amount of $2,300.
And am I looking at this right, where this is going to serve 600 students? Okay.
And it's a Title I school. 54% of the students receive free and reduced lunch, and they are supplementing their learning centers at the school.
I mean, it seems, again, this seems like it's really right in line with what it is that we're trying to achieve, and so I'll make a motion to support the full amount.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded to support the Potomac Elementary School in the amount of $2,300 for their learning center. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, here comes a big one. Goochland County Public Schools.
Is it, and this is new, right? They've never done this before.
This is new, right.
24 years.
Is seeking funds to engage approximately 400 fifth and sixth grade students and their teachers during the 24 to 2025 academic years through meaningful watershed and educational experiences. Students will utilize the natural resources of the James River Association's New River Center to investigate its many habitats, and they're asking for $20,930. They're trying to enrich and maximize the learning potential of the Goochland County Public School System, or for the students.
Now, I'm looking that, okay, it looks like that there's professional development for teachers, which
Which we don't do.
which is $1,100. And then I see down here later, there's like grant management, $2,700. Is that another item that we don't fund, if I remember right?
Correct, we cannot pay for the grant management aspect of it.
So that's $3,800.
Well, I believe we can pay for the professional, like the training of the teachers, but we
Okay.
cannot pay
The teachers.
stipends
Okay.
for, yeah,
Thank you.
them missing their school.
Is there a staff recommendation on this?
So staff recommendation was to fund the proposal minus the grant management, which would be $18,200. There was concern, however, about a lack of match from the local government or the nonprofit that are proposing the application.
Madam Chair, could I make a suggestion? Since this is a substantial amount of money being requested, perhaps for ones like this, we could park them to the side till we get through the entire list and then reconsider what we really have to work with.
I think that's a
And
good
come
idea.
Thank
back
you.
to them. Okay.
So is that just just a motion
Just,
to table it or
to-
park it?
we're parking it.
We're parking. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We'll add that to Robert's rules. I want to see when my legislation comes over to the Senate.
We're gonna
and you-
park
And you're
it.
going to make a motion to
I'm
park
gonna,
it.
I'm gonna park it.
Yes. And it'll just be between you and I, and I'll know.
Yes, yes. We're parking that, delegate. The next one is from the Tidewater Oyster Gardeners Association to continue their previous grant application, Growing Oysters for a Cleaner Bay. They propose to continue to expand the education and outreach activities. They seek funding for shells, supplies, and kiosk signage for their educational oyster reef at Camp Kikoka. I was going to get it. Educational exhibits and oysters, and they're asking for $10,300, and you're here to talk about that.
I'm more than happy to answer questions.
Yeah.
We are very much a grandparent organization because of who we are. We have 600 families, all here in Virginia, and we range basically from the Potomac River all the way down to the Tidewater area. And what we do is as we've broken down this last year, I need to update a number with our outreach to school children. We 26 teachers, 17 classrooms, well, it's now 28 classrooms and 1,480 students because we did the Urbana Oyster Festival Education Day, where they actually provide a field trip before the Thursday before the Urbana Festival. And they brought in 5 schools, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and they had over 500 students that went to. We were one of 12 organizations that were there that day. So we're an all-volunteer organization. You've been we appreciate Chesapeake Bay Restoration Fund. They've been very generous with us for the last 8 years. And we're slightly different. We do provide an education outreach for both children and adults. And we put our 600 member families put approximately 500,000 oysters in the bay every year.
And is it having a positive impact on the bay?
The water's pretty clean, especially where we are. We both looked this morning. It's clean.
Okay. Recommendation, ma'am?
Staff recommended full funding for the proposal.
Madam Chair, I'll move to fully fund the request. I have seen your organization most recently last year. King George County hosted the Northern Neck Land Conservancy Boots and Barbecue. You all are always out at all of the events promoting your program, and I think putting our funds to good use.
We have the motion and a second
Yes.
to approve the Tidewater Oyster Gardeners Association in the amount of $10,300. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. We're now down to item number 10 from John Marshall Soil and Water Conservation District, seeking funding for the planting of approximately 900 native trees and shrubs in the tributaries of the Rappahannock and Potomac Rivers. Funding will be applied towards the trees, tree tube stakes, and porta-johns in the amount of $6,060.
So this is about 2/3 of the cost of the total project, so that means that there is money coming from other sources. And I guess part of that is staff time. And volunteers are providing in-kind services, so that's all good. I'm just looking, we've done this before.
They're paying $200 for snack and water for volunteers.
So is there a staff recommendation?
Staff recommends funding the $5,400 for the trees, tree tubes, and tree tube stakes.
Okay. And the part that we would be leaving out would be the porta-johns and the snacks.
And if I may, I've been a part of some of these plantings. They put on a pretty good show. It's team building. The snacks are worth it. They gather and talk about the good work that's being done by planting. And there's a lot of sweat equity certainly involved in getting those trees in the ground. So
Okay, but staff recommendation is 5,400?
Correct. They weren't asking for us to cover the snack costs. They were going to provide that.
Okay,
Okay, so the
so-
recommendation's for 5,400.
okay. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we provide 5,400 to the John Marshall Soil and Water Conservation District. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we're now down to the Virginia Association of Soil and Water Conservation District Educational Foundation, requesting continuous funding to provide educational opportunities to high school students through Envirothon, which is a natural resources competition. The funds will go towards supporting and coordinating local and regional soil and water conservation and district Envirothon programming across the state. And they're asking for $12,000.
Which is
That's
a
what they asked
continuation
last year.
of last year. And it looks like that it's been that consistent since, gosh, I mean, minus 6,000 when we had the pandemic. So it's been consistent for that entire time. And it looks like it's a small portion of the overall budget of $66,000. I'd make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we provide the Virginia Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts Educational Foundation the total requested of $12,000. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we're now down to Newport News Public Schools, requesting continuation of funding to provide all seventh graders, which is 1,975 kids with field experience in the Chesapeake Bay Ecology Lab, which is provided by the Virginia Living Museum, as well as provide the seventh grade teachers, a total of 28, with 2 days of professional development. And that's a total of $15,000.
I'm just always impressed at the number of students and teachers that some of these programs touch. I mean, because, you know, this is the goal of the program, is to make them aware of the importance of the Bay. And this looks like it's about half of what the total budget is. And it's consistent with what we've provided before. So, I mean, I'd make a motion that we go ahead and support this.
Second.
And the Virginia Living Museum is awesome.
Which one?
The Virginia Living Museum.
Oh. Are you inviting us all to come down for a tour?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. The motion is to provide the Newport News Public Schools with $15,000 for the project requested. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Sustainable Chesapeake is requesting, and their partners are requesting continuation of their work with Virginia farmers to support peer-to-peer education that focuses on expanding the adoption of critically important conservation systems that include cover cropping, no-till, and nutrient management. They also support farmer-led outreach and education through video production and in-person professional meetings for farmers, agribusinesses, and conservation professionals. And they are requesting a total of $15,000, which is what was provided last year.
And for staff, I might have asked this question last year. So this is money that is not funded out of the Ag Extension Program or agricultural best management practices?
Correct. So a lot of the cost share funding goes direct to the implementation of the practices themselves. And this organization, Sustainable Chesapeake, is really focused on not only driving farmer engagement, kind of on the marketing side of it, but also driving innovation and getting the adoption of new practices that are generally more efficient than our older practices on the ground. And so staff's recommendation was to fully fund the proposal.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay. Moved and seconded that Sustainable Chesapeake be funded at the amount of $15,000. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, our next request comes from Chesterfield County Public Schools, seeking funding with the James River Association to coordinate paddle trips with 150 seventh grade students. The students will learn more about the ecosystem and how to protect it while paddling in canoes at Deep Bottom Park. They are asking for $10,200.
And this is comparable to what we've done before, right?
And they're paying for substitute teachers too, as a part of that request.
As a part of the request, yes, which would not be an allowable expense.
So
Yep.
so it appears that last year we paid for the 7,200 and we didn't pay for the buses or the substitute teachers.
Right.
Is that staff's recommendation for again this year, the 7,200?
Mhm.
So I would make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we fund the Chesterfield County Public Schools project at the amount of $7,200. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 The next request comes from the Booker T. Washington Middle School in Newport News, who want to continue with their previous grant application, which is for travel and fees for 7 kayak trips to collect water samples and marine species with a 3-day experience to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation's Port Isabel Island. And they're asking for $7,150. And this is the school's Marine Science Magnet School in Newport News.
Very nice. Was there a staff recommendation? Because this appears to be a little bit more than last year. Is that just due to inflation, or are there things that we should not be including?
The one item that staff flagged was the $250 for advocacy materials, which is generally not an allowable expense. So the recommendation, I believe, was for $6,900.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to fund the Booker T. Washington Middle School at the amount of $6,900. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Now it looks like the next one is a new
Next
request.
one is Jefferson Forest High School in Forest, Virginia. And they're seeking funds to supplement their oceanography course. In this course, students have the opportunity to set up and maintain a working saltwater ecosystem in the classroom. So, and they're seeking $2,000 to support this course. And what I see them doing is providing programming and support that provides the student with an innovative and empowering learning experience, is how they describe it.
I mean, I like the idea, and I don't see that there's anything in here that would be excluded. Is there any recommendation from staff?
Staff recommended full funding.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
See, moved and seconded to fund Jefferson Forest High School in the amount of $2,000. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Next project is the Friends of Dragon Run, seeking funding for a 3-day summer immersive hands-on professional development experience through Stream Ride, investigations, learning about biodiversity, and key flora fauna, guided paddle tours of the Dragon Run, and interpretive hikes within the Dragon Run watershed. And they are asking for a total of $11,152.
Madam Chair, I've been lucky enough to work with the Friends of the Dragon Run quite a bit. They're doing some neat programming. They train teachers here and then take these teachers out into the classroom throughout the rest of the school year. And this is a growing organization. They just acquired some land also in the watershed. They're doing a great job taking care of it, but also teaching the next generation to be stewards as well.
If I may say something, it's one of Virginia's brown rivers that people care about. Brown River being one in a forested area that gets a lot of debris and other stuff in it. It's in the Middle Peninsula.
I note that, are they paying stipends? Yeah.
Yes, Madam Chair, I wholeheartedly agree that Dragon Run is a wonderful place, and the Friends of Dragon Run do a spectacular job of sharing it with the citizens of Virginia. If you haven't been, you should go. However, $5,400 of the application is teacher stipends, which is not an allowable expense. And then I would also point out the $2,000 for transportation.
So then what's the recommended amount?
It would be $3,752 after the subtraction of those two items.
I would make a motion to fund it at that level.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we fund the Friends of Dragon Run, Inc. at an amount of $3,752. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next is the Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District. They seek funds to expand their lawn soil tests for homeowners across Culpeper, Greene, Madison, Orange, and Rappahannock counties. These tests aim to educate residents on the need to reduce unnecessary fertilizer use. The Culpeper Soil, Water, and Conservation District will also address bay-friendly landscaping, give background on the Chesapeake Bay and the Bay license plate, and offer each household one free soil test. And the amount being sought is $1,800.
Now, this seems to be significantly less than what they'd asked for last year, so I guess it's a completely different program this year. And would it be safe to assume that the way that they're describing this, especially with that they're talking about using native species for part of the landscaping that they're talking about, which is one of those things that we've really been trying to encourage people to do? And we're talking about $1,800. Is there, I'm looking real quick, I mean, is there anything in here that is unallowable, or is what they're asking for all within the scope of the program?
Staff did not see any issues with their requested funding. It's for soil testing and for shipping for the soil tests.
I'll move to support the $1,800.
Second.
Moved and seconded to support the Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District in the amount of $1,800. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Where are we on money?
Madam Chair, it appears that we're at $99,250.
We got a little bit more. Okay. All right, we are now down to the Chesapeake Academy. Chesapeake Academy is requesting $4,500 to make renovations to the nature trail that is part of their outdoor classroom to minimize sediment runoff into Carter's Creek from eroding slope.
Madam Chair,
So while I think developing a nature trail is certainly a worthwhile endeavor, it looks to me like, first of all, I don't have a project budget. I don't have anything here with regard to a project budget. It just referenced another organization. But secondly, to me, this is not exactly a hands-on experience for children until it gets done, and it looks like we're basically being requested to fund heavy construction. And so for that reason, I would decline.
I had questions and concerns as well, and so I would support that.
Same from staff? Okay. Okay, moved and seconded that the funding request coming from Chesapeake Academy be declined. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are now down to Peter Francisco Soil and Water Conservation District, requesting continuous funding for SOL-related environmental education programs to approximately 3,500 students in Buckingham and Cumberland counties, over 200 students in private schools, and over 50 homeschoolers and adult groups. They seek funding to purchase supplies for their MWEE, provide field trips to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation's Brock Environmental Center and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Day at the Presqu'Isle, close enough, National Wildlife Refuge, and attend the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Exploration and James River Headwaters Exploration Camps. And they're asking for $10,500.
Is there a staff recommendation on this? Because I'm looking through their spreadsheet here, and it looks like that they've asked for grant money, and I'm trying to do the math real quick to see if they've excluded the things that are going to be funded by another source. Because it looks like the, excuse me, it looks like the total amount, it looks like that they've excluded the things that would normally be excluded. So I'm just trying to ask if I'm looking at this correctly.
Correct, yes. They do have a bit of a better budget chart on, I believe it's page 3.
Yeah.
And it looks like they have excluded, the food. There are transportation costs included in these, which is generally not something we have been including. So that's 16.
So it looked to me like
$2,100
$2,100 worth of
Right,
transportation.
so we would subtract 2,100.
Yeah, that was the note that I had too.
So we subtracted 2,100 at least.
So does that make it 8,400?
Peter Francisco, 7868. I have 5768.
5768 would be the allowable amount.
Right.
I'd make a motion to approve that amount.
Second.
All right, for the Peter Francisco Soil and Water Conservation District, the motion is to provide $5,768. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. We are now down to Fairfax County Park Foundation, requesting funds to offer elementary, middle, Title I, and underrepresented children field trips to Cub Run Recreation Center located in Chantilly. Students will receive hands-on experiences.
Madam Chair, can we go back to the previous one just for a second?
Yeah, I apologize. I had my math wrong. So it would be the 10,500 minus 2,100 for the Peter Francisco application, which would leave them at 8,400.
How much?
8,400.
8,400. I apologize.
So we need to
That was the
revise
math I was.
motion.
That was the math I was doing in my head, but I wasn't sure.
I was on the wrong line
Okay.
on the spreadsheet.
So we need to
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to amend the previous motion to be 8,400.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded that the Peter Francisco Soil and Water Conservation District be provided $8,400 for their project. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right, so that's
All right, thank you.
approved. Okay, now we're down to the Fairfax County Park Foundation, and they are seeking funding to offer elementary, middle, Title I, and underrepresented children field trips to Cub Run Recreation Center located in Chantilly. Students will receive hands-on experiences that will strengthen their knowledge of the watershed, and they are requesting $3,496.17.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the full amount.
Second.
Is that okay with staff on this one?
Staff had some questions about the student audience, both from the Department of Education as well as from the Bay Commission. However, the decision is yours.
And what do you mean a student audience? What was the question?
Clearly defining, who would be accessing the facility. A lot of times, the partnerships are already well-defined as a part of the application, and we just didn't see that in this one.
Can we make the motion contingent upon additional clarification received by staff?
Okay, we can do that. Okay, so the motion is to fund Fairfax County Park Foundation $3,496.17, contingent upon additional clarification of the student population. Is that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the next request comes from the Loudoun Soil and Water Conservation District, seeking funds to support riparian buffer planting workshops where students, teachers, parents, and volunteers will plant native trees, shrubs, grasses, forests, and legumes to create the riparian buffers, as well as teach people about water quality impacts from both urban and agricultural land use. And they are seeking $3,000.
And is there a recommendation from staff?
Staff recommends full funding.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the Loudoun Soil and Water Conservation District be funded at $3,000 for this project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're now back to the Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District, seeking funds for the construction of a rain garden at the district office. They will do this in partnership with the Virginia Cooperative Extension. They will host and sponsor at least 2 hands-on workshops demonstrating the design, installation, and maintenance of stormwater practices. The rain garden would highlight the need to create functional landscape beds that reduce runoff and utilize native plants. And for this project, the request is for $7,868.
So, question to staff, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
So I'm looking at the information on page 2. So it's $27 per square feet. Am I looking at this, the installation is the request is for the full cost of the installation at $7,868?
So it appears the landlord is providing $2,500
Okay.
towards the installation, and then the grant request would cover the remainder of the installation cost, and the district is covering all of the outreach and
Okay.
maintenance and workshops that would be done in conjunction.
Okay, thank you. And is there a recommendation from staff on this?
Staff recommendation was full funding.
I would make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District receive funding in the amount of $7,868 for this project. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay. Next request comes from the City of Poquoson Events Office for to further educate the public regarding the Chesapeake Bay environmental areas during their seafood festival by providing hands-on and interactive learning displays of sea life, the bay as a food source, and the importance of protecting the bay over their 3-day festival. And this information will be provided to children and families. And they're requesting $1,750, which is, I think, slightly less than what was requested last year.
Any recommendations from staff?
Staff recommended funding the proposal.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the City of Poquoson be funded in the amount of $1,750 for this project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We are now down to the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, requesting funding to support River Trends, a volunteer water quality monitoring program that has been successful in engaging volunteers and watershed organizations in data collecting throughout Virginia's portion of the Chesapeake Bay watershed since 1985. The funds will go toward monitoring equipment, printed materials, and shipping costs. The request is for $11,000, and I believe this is their first request. It doesn't show any previous funding. Okay.
And what's staff assessment on this? Because this is new and...
Monitoring is certainly an extremely impactful activity, especially when volunteers can be involved in it. The only question that staff had related to this was the amount requested appears to be $11,000, but the budget shows a need of $10,000, and so staff recommended $10,000 in funding.
So you're looking at, just for clarification, you're looking at the first part there on that detailed budget that is actually the monitoring equipment of $10,000 and not the $11,000 that they're asking for in the monitoring grant.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I say one thing? We have 7 other members that I know of that are already doing the monitoring and things like that. So it's a program that it will continue on no matter what you guys do. And it is strictly volunteers. It's people on the 2 creeks over from me and 4 creeks north of me.
So the staff recommendation is $10,000.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'll make that recommendation or that motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay receive $10,000 for this monitoring project. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the next project comes from Amherst County Public Schools, and they are requesting $22,400, and this is an initial request to fund, and they will be partnering with the James River Association to engage 270 7th grade life science students and 8th grade students in an ongoing, in an outdoor meaning watershed educational experience, and to provide in-class learning sessions facilitated jointly by the James River Association and Amherst County Public Schools teachers.
And staff recommendation or staff analysis?
So staff recommends funding for the meaningful watershed experience aspect. So that is the $20,400, the marketing and printing materials for the field trips, and then the nursery plants. So that is a total of, $21,200.
Madam Chair, may I ask where we are with our,
Including this or not including this?
before including this?
Madam Chair, we are currently at $133,764.17.
So including this with the staff recommendation would put us at about 150, leaving us about 100 left.
Right.
And we're on
We are
26 of
26.
57.
Yeah. But a lot more to go. And of the ones to go,
Could I suggest perhaps we put this to the side as well and reconsider it?
We want to park this one as well?
Yes.
we can park it and come back. Is there a few more that are, have some significant
can I-
numbers?
And Madam Chair, if I can ask staff another question. Do you know from looking at some of these things, like this particular one that we're kind of parking and the other one that was in the $20,000 range, do you know from your analysis whether or not the organization would be able to do the project with partial funding, or are some of these things and, like an either or? It's like they either get the money and they do it, or they don't get the money and they don't do it.
Right, it's very situation dependent.
Okay.
Unfortunately. So in this particular situation, I'm not aware of Amherst County receiving any additional grant funding for these types of activities. I do know James River Association is very active in the area, recently opened a river center in Lynchburg, and so does have a long-term relationship with Amherst County, but I can't tell you whether or not this is a make or break,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, along those same lines, I see that in both of those grants that we've parked, meaningful watershed education experience. It seems to be a kind of a catchphrase or an umbrella phrase that that they're using in the applications. Isn't there funding available for that exact purpose, a different line of funding?
Yes. So just to give you guys a little background on the Chesapeake Bay restoration effort, there is, a Chesapeake Bay agreement that all of the Bay watershed jurisdictions have signed on to. EPA, the federal government, has signed on to, the Chesapeake Bay Commission, as well as the legislative representative. One of the goals of the Chesapeake Bay Agreement is environmental literacy for all of the students in the watershed. The meaningful watershed educational experience is the pillar of what that environmental literacy looks like. That is why you see so many of these organizations requesting funding for that. The goal is, to provide every student with that experience in elementary, middle, and high school. It is a very well-defined term. There are 4 aspects of the meaningful watershed educational experience, including, the classroom aspect, the field aspect, the action project aspect, which is why, I'm looking for like these long-term metrics for engagement and what those action projects look like in the applications. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, does have a watershed education and training grant program that is specifically to provide the MIWIs, as we call them. Those are highly competitive, and only a few districts get them every year in the full Bay watershed, so it's not just Virginia districts that are looking for it. They do last for 3 years, so that, they'll grant them $1 million plus to run those programs. And there has been a lot of emphasis on, addressing the needs in underserved communities over the last number of years as well. So the city of Richmond got an announcement, an award several years ago, and there was a focus there. So yes, there is another funding stream. It is highly competitive. But that is why you see those terms spread through these applications. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so we put a hold on that one for now. So we go to the Thomas Hunter Middle School requesting $16,200 to support an initiative to create a K-12 Chesapeake-based STEM pathway. And the items will be used for an in-class reference materials and equipment for field experiences to enhance ongoing curriculum improvements for all students through daily instruction utilizing authentic experiences. Funds will go toward a Chesapeake Bay themed classroom library startup to bridge language arts and science curriculum. And they received $16,000 in 2022.
Does staff know the $16,000 that they received in 2022, was it for the same program or a different program? Is this just coincidental that it's almost exactly the same amount and it's just a different program completely, or is it a continuation?
Madam Chair, it appears that it is a different program. There's similar experiences, but it's not the exact same. And they requested $17,000, but received
16 too. So does the staff have a recommendation?
Staff certainly appreciated the proposal and thought that it had strong potential, but there were questions about the aquarium costs. If you recall, in an application we considered earlier today, it was an aquarium setup for approximately $2,000, and you all voted to fully fund that proposal. But this application has approximately $12,000 requested for the aquariums. So staff recommended reducing that amount to be consistent with the prior proposal.
And thank you for that. I mean, Madam Chair, one of the things that I'm looking at here on page 2 is it appears that the 6 items that they have listed on there are all severable items. So you have a Chesapeake Bay themed classroom, library, and startup, which is $500, and then the student field experience, which is $300 per trip, and that's $1,200. And then there's a submersible drone, which is $1,500. So it appears that much along what we could fund any portion of this, or we could fund it at a reduced amount based upon staff's recommendation. And I guess if we were looking at, so was staff looking at still one Reef Systems aquarium for $2,000 and 2 of the other ones for $4,000, or just one regional Chesapeake Bay watershed aquarium.
I would recommend simply funding $2,000 for an aquarium and allow the applicant to decide, you know, the appropriate
So then that would,
setup with that available funding.
so then that would be 2, 3, 4,500, 5,000, $6,200. Am I doing the math right?
That's what I came up with as well, 6,200.
So what's the total?
If we use, you know, the math that we're talking about here, it'd be, instead of the $12,000 down there at the bottom for the 3 aquariums, there would be $2,000 for 1 aquarium.
Right.
They pick whichever one they want, and then we're funding the rest of the items above that, which would be $6,200. And I would make that motion,
Second.
Give me the amount again.
6,200.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that the Thomas Hunter Middle School be funded in the amount of $6,200. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, we are now down to Dominion Christian School, requesting $4,500 for their school life science classes to spark student interest in an action project to apply best management practices on the new school property that will mitigate the negative impacts of stormwater runoff and provide native plant habitat for birds and pollinators, to help students connect actions in the schoolyard and to the health ecosystems in the Chesapeake Bay. The teacher proposes to provide capstone field experiences to the Potomac River and the Chesapeake Bay for the middle school life science classes. And included in this request that they have transportation and meals.
So I'm looking at this, and so it looks like, if I'm looking at this in their itemized budget, in item number 1, they're not asking, they're going to pay for that themselves, so they're not asking for any money from us. And then item number 2, they're asking for $3,500 from us. And then item number 3, which is transportation, they're asking for $500 from us. And then the student action project, native plants and materials, they're asking for another $500. So that gets you to $4,500. So I can't remember, is transportation an allowable expense or not?
No, we have not been.
Okay. So then if we funded what they were asking for, then it would be that's allowable, it would be 4,000 instead of 4,500. Is that staff's recommendation? Okay. I would make that motion, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
So the motion is to provide Dominion Christian School $4,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Moving right along here. We're now down to Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, requesting $15,960, which is a continuation of a previous grant application. They propose best management practices for the Hampton Roads region. This will include pet waste station programs, cigarette receptacle programs, rain barrel workshops, and storm drain marking and messaging. The funding will be used for pet waste stations, cigarette receptacles, storm drain medallions, sidewalk vinyl decals, and partially rain barrel workshops.
Any staff recommendation?
Staff certainly supports the concept of the application. We noted the lack of match amount. They're only providing $2,000 in match for the proposal. This is also a very similar request to what they have been proposing in the past. And I also have concerns that, like an application we'll see later in the morning, this is actually being partially used to address some of the education and outreach regulatory requirements from their municipal separate storm sewer system permits. So at this particular moment, I would recommend a parking lot for this, and we can get through the rest of the,
It's in,
list.
it's in the lot. Okay. Next is the Capital Region Land Conservancy, asking for $15,000 for an event celebrating Public Lands Day at the Varina Land Lab Conservation Area. Funds will be used for the event to inspire participants and the public on Chesapeake Bay restoration through interactive activities and for habitat restoration efforts. A lot of rental stuff.
Yeah, I agree, Madam Chair. That stood out to me, the rental and miscellaneous expenses of $800. I could do whatever I wanted with that and call it miscellaneous, so I had concern about that as well. Thank you.
Recommendation, ma'am?
Staff recommendation was $7,500 for invasive species control, to purchase the native plants and for interpretive signage.
I'll move adoption of staff's recommendation on that.
Moved and seconded that the Capital Region Land Conservancy be provided $7,500. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. We're down to Williamsburg Botanical Garden, seeking funding to purchase and install a new rain barrel for one of their sheds used to store maintenance equipment. Recycled water would allow the garden to reduce reliance on other water sources. They also want to educate visitors about the importance of water conservation and how to use rain barrels to capture and reuse rainwater. They're requesting $500.
Any staff recommendation on this?
Staff recommends connecting the botanical garden with some of the local nonprofits who often provide rain barrels at a much lower cost.
So that would be a motion to say,
Madam Chair, I'll move to decline.
okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we declined the request from Williamsburg Botanical Gardens. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are now down to Rivanna Conservation Alliance Education Project. Want to continue with the previous grant application to continue its successful sixth grade program, reaching 1,000 sixth grade students in Albemarle County and 300 seventh grade students in the city of Charlottesville. The Conservation Alliance will also conduct training in middle school science teachers to help them integrate the program into their curriculum, and they're requesting $7,000.
Madam Chair, I liked this proposal. I think it's a lot of bang for the buck, and they have other sources that are contributing towards it.
So is that a motion, Annie?
I would move,
think
as
so.
long as staff concurs. Thank you.
All right, second.
Okay, moved and seconded that the Rivanna Conservation Alliance be provided $7,000 for its project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. We are, a second proposal from Rivanna Conservation Alliance engaging the Rivanna community in protecting water quality. This is also continuing previous grant applications to continue to work with community partners to address high priority water quality concerns such as eroding riverbanks, degraded and unvegetated riparian areas, and untreated stormwater. This particular year's project will help control erosion, reduce non-point source pollution, and improve native habitats by planting riparian forest buffers, install live stakes on the eroding banks, install rain gardens, create native meadows, and remove invasive vines to protect riparian areas. And for this project, they are requesting $8,500. It indicates that the total project cost is $37,000.
Madam Chair, could I ask what staff's recommendation is on this one?
Staff's recommendation, given that there are clear activities and outcomes with a high and long-term impact associated with the proposal, full funding.
Thank you.
Okay, we need a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that Rivanna Conservation Alliance receive $8,500 for this project. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, next is the Bull Run Mountains Conservancy, requesting $1,200 to continue with their grant on Chesapeake watershed workshops. They seek funding to offer 6 scholarships to students aged 15 to 18 to become watershed ambassadors. This program is an immersive summer experience that engages high school students in learning about the diverse ecosystems of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. The funds will go directly toward these workshops.
And staff, this looks like it's a continuation of what has been done in the past. Is there any recommendation for this?
Staff recommended full funding for the proposal.
All right, I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded that Bull Run Mountain Conservancy receive $1,200 for this proposal. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And Madam Chair,
Okay,
could we
can
get?
we get an update?
Oh, yeah.
Madam Chair, we are now at $168,164.17.
About 80,000 left.
Okay, whittling down here. Okay, we're at the Colonial Soil and Water Conservation District, seeking funding for a pilot site at the Oaks in Williamsburg to create an urban cost share program that provides financial incentives as well as technical and educational assistance to HOAs willing to convert turf into pollinator habitat using native plants and fewer chemicals. And they're asking for $15,000.
And what's the staff's recommendation?
So staff had a lot of questions related to this application. Initially, there is a Virginia Conservation Assistance Program, which provides funding for these exact types of practices. So it's unclear why this district is choosing to create their own program when a larger program already exists. I did not see anything stating support of the HOA they were intending to partner with, and it was unclear on how the homeowners were going to be incentivized if all of the funding would go directly to the contractor. So staff recommended no funding for this proposal.
Madam Chair, I'll move to decline funding the request.
Second.
Moved and seconded that funding to the Colonial Soil and Water Conservation District be declined at this time. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay. We're down to Friends of Forest Hill Park requesting $3,525 to fund a habitat restoration of the Crooked Branch Ravine Park, a City of Richmond property. They propose an invasive plant removal by sheep or goats, followed by the planting of native plants, which will aid in erosion control.
So this is a new request. Any input from staff?
So this is the first application I've seen with sheep or goats. So I did get a good laugh from it, but they do perform exactly as you would hope they would. They are very effective at removing invasive species, and for control, I have had them by Bryan Park, which is my local park up towards the north of the city. The concern that I had with the application is that the city of Richmond is not providing any match, and it is a city of Richmond park. So I recommended $1,000 for the native plants and recommended that the organization work with the city to cover the remainder of the cost.
I would make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded that Friends of Forest Hill Park receive $1,000 for their project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the Chesapeake Bay Academy is requesting $2,990 to invest in environmental equipment and experiences for students. These fun experiences would allow students to board a boat and get out on the water, trawl, see the ecosystem, and witness the role of waterways in supporting marine life. They will enhance students' comprehension of classroom content and expand the discussion of how students can best serve as good environmental stewards of the Chesapeake Bay and extended waterways.
I have a question for staff, Madam Chair. Am I missing here? Does it say how many children are going to be taking advantage of this program?
It doesn't say how many kids.
I couldn't find it either.
I see that we funded them in the past at a larger amount.
It does say within the budget that it would be 25 students going on the environmental trips.
I see there now, okay.
Yeah, but that is the only place that I see it.
At least as I'm looking at this, this all appears to be allowable and within the scope of the program. Was there a recommendation from staff?
The Department of Education did offer that much of the equipment on the list are materials that the school should already have. I myself recommended full funding, and so I will offer those expert opinions to you.
So the 2990.
That was my recommendation, yes.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Chesapeake Bay Academy receive 2990 in funding for their project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. We are now down to Clean Waterways, Clean Virginia Waterways, Longwood University. This is one we always get. Continuing previous grant applications, they seek funds for the 2024 Virginia Waterways Cleanup, which is a project to increase public awareness and knowledge of Virginia's watersheds by involving volunteers in removing solid waste debris and litter from beaches and the tributaries to the bay, and a year-round litter prevention educational program cleanup event. The funds will be spent entirely on supplies, and the request is for $8,000, which is up from last year.
And it looks like that this is only about 12% or so of their overall budget, so they're getting a lot of other investment from other groups.
What's your recommendation on this one?
Staff recommended full funding.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded that Clean Virginia Waterways from Longwood University receive $8,000 for the cleanup project. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, give me a total.
Madam Chair, we are currently at $180,154.17.
All right. Friends of the Rappahannock requesting funds to increase oyster restoration efforts in the Rappahannock River and tributaries through the Rappahannock River Oyster Restoration Partnership. Plans are to restore 15 acres of oyster reef in the Rappahannock River, Carter's Creek, and Urbana Creek. And the amount request is for $10,000. I'm sorry? Sure.
We've been really growing our oyster restoration program in the past few years, one of which is our oyster shell recycling program. We've been expanding a lot and using that shell that we recycle for substrate for restoring the reefs in the Rappahannock River and its watershed. We also use that shell for our new Spout on Shell program, and that also has student involvement. I know the Marine Education Day at the Urbana Oyster Festival was mentioned earlier. Students helped us bag that shell for our Spout on Shell program. And we also work with our partners to grow out sea oysters to then contribute to that reef restoration as well. We do also in-classroom activities with the students.
Your program is focused as opposed to Baylor Reefs, which the state does fund in their free program. They've chosen areas that do need to be thought about.
Thank you. Recommendation?
From staff.
Full funding.
All right, I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded that Friends of the Rappahannock receive $10,000 in grant funding. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we're down to Burtneck Elementary PTA, requesting funds to provide all fifth grade students, of which there are 80, the opportunity to attend the Chesapeake Bay Foundation's boat program at the Brock Center, provide the replacement pieces for 2 aging coastal watershed tables, and provide funding for a 75 110-gallon aquarium and the required supplies and accessories. And they're requesting $5,500. So recommendation here?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, if we're going to be consistent, I mean, the $2,650 for the aquatic zoo, which I'm assuming is the aquarium. We've been using the number of 2,000 for the other areas. I mean, would that be correct? And what about the other items above that?
So it looks like it would be, they're asking for $800 for the transportation
Okay.
as well. So we would need to subtract the $650.
So that would be 5,500 minus the 650,
And then minus the 800,
which is 1,450, so it puts you at about,
4,050 left, I think.
I think so.
I would point out, this is another application where we don't have match provided by the school, which is something for your consideration.
I don't know anything about Bird Neck Elementary School, and so it's like I don't know whether or not they have the money to provide a match. But it sounds like that if we took out the transportation and used a consistent number for the aquarium, then the recommendation would be $4,050. I would make that motion, Madam Chair.
4,050.
4,050.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that Bird Neck Elementary School PTA be provided $4,050 for their requested project. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The next request comes from VIMS, Virginia Institute of Marine Science, for funding to supply certified marinas under the Virginia Clean Marina Program and Cleanway devices to use at fueling stations. These devices capture fuel overfills while eliminating the need for rags, absorbent sheets, fuel-absorbent towels, fuel-absorbent pads, and fuel dispersal sprays. The funds would go toward purchasing 200 Cleanway fuel fill battle kits, or baffle kits. And they're requesting $16,250.
And is there a staff recommendation? And also the second question I have is, I mean, because we have less money available than last year, I don't know who the delegate or the state senator is, but I mean, is this something that could be introduced as a legislative amendment, a legislative budget amendment?
I'm sure it is something that could be
Be-
requested by the state representatives.
And is there a recommendation from staff?
Staff appreciates the proposal, but would like to see greater evaluation of the project results as a part of the project.
So
And you're right, FIMS does get money.
VIMS gets money, and if they need additional money, I mean, I'm not sure who represents Gloucester Point, but it's like, I would think that if they needed an extra $17,000, that the delegate or the senator could
Right.
put in a budget request for it.
I agree.
So I'm going to make a recommendation that we decline and provide a recommendation that they talk with their local representative to request the additional funding.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the request from VIMS be declined at this time. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. The next comes from Prince William Conservation Alliance, seeking funding to support a series of educational talks highlighting riparian areas and developing opportunities to remove invasive species and plant native species through the collaboration of local government, nonprofit, green landscaping companies, and local residents. The goal is to connect people to nature through direct stewardship to enhance natural resources and cultivate a community of people who care to protect it now and in the future. They're requesting $9,000 for this project.
So if I may ask a question of staff, so I'm looking through this at the $9,000 that they requested, and then there's $3,000 that's expert consultation paid for by the grant. I mean, is that a typical expense, or does that fall into the category of being staff expense as well?
So in the past, we have paid for consultants a lot
Okay.
of times to allow them to do the engineering design that's required for some of these projects. What I would flag for you all is the $1,000 for permitting requirements for the restoration of the resource protection area. That's not something that would be an allowable expense.
And are we comfortable with the other materials, the $600 for water, flagging tape, et cetera? I mean, or is that just another term for miscellaneous?
Staff was comfortable with funding at $8,000.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to fund it at $8,000.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the Prince William Conservation Alliance be funded at $8,000 for this project. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Next request comes from Maymount Foundation requesting $14,300 to fund continued support of expanding environmental educational opportunities for students and teachers through field investigations and teacher workshops, as well as continue to offer opportunities for Title I students, approximately $10,000 per student, through covering the cost of field trips.
Madam Chair, if I might ask, this looks like it's about 3 times more than what was awarded last year. Is this a completely different program? Or just it's expanded by 300%? Okay, I'm seeing now it says that they've increased the number of students from 3,600 to 10,500. So it's a successful project that is expanding.
So what's your recommendation?
Given the success of the program and the low cost per student of $10, staff recommended full funding for the proposal.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded that the project being requested by Maymount Foundation be funded at $14,300. Please give me
That puts us at about 217.
okay.
Which means that we have 38, 30-something left.
Yes, Madam Chair, we are at $216,504.17.
They put me on appropriations for a reason.
Okay, we're down to the Marine Science Legacy Program, the Urbana Oyster Festival. The Urbana Oyster Festival seeks funds to support the Marine Science Legacy Program. The funding will go toward educational boat trips with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, kayak exploration field trips focused on local waterways and water quality with Friends of the Rappahannock, field trips to, is it Wicomo? Yeah, that. State Park, and a field trip on a working water boat to study oyster culture and help restore oyster reefs in the Rappahannock River. And the request here is for $10,240.
This is the one that I discussed, the education day that they did for the over 500 students. It is funded privately also through the Urbana Festival actually throws in quite a bit of money to this. And the reefs that you just heard about for the Rappahannock is also one of those
And the staff's recommendation?
Staff recommended full funding for this proposal.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the Marine Science Legacy Program for the Urbana Oyster Festival be funded at $10,240. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we are now down to Mountain Castle Soil and Water Conservation District, requesting $8,450. And they are partnering with Botetourt County Public Schools to provide meaningful Bayfield experiences for 2nd, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. The 7th grade program will provide all students with a 1.5-hour paddle on the James River in Botetourt County. Their goal is to help students forge a personal connection with the river and drive home the concept of downstream while observing and measuring how human activities impact the river. If, is this providing the wages for, this isn't providing the wages for the,
No,
it's only for the student part of the
yeah,
program?
it's just the restoration fund, the canoe rental, the paddling instruction, 325 7th grade students, so the wages are in the second item
Okay.
down, and the
Okay.
bus transportation is down from that. So that, as far as I can tell, they're asking for allowable grant funding. Is there a recommendation from staff?
Staff recommended funding, full funding for this proposal.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded that Mountain Castle's Soil and Water Conservation District receive $8,450. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we are down to Isaac Walton League of America, requesting a whole bunch of money.
And I will tell you at this point, Madam Chair, it looks like we have $19,000 left.
Well, they don't get 27,000. But we know the answer to that. So they are looking for money to continue and expand their Virginia SOS Salt Watch and Nitrate Watch programs throughout Virginia. So, but they're asking for $27,080. Well, we know they're not getting $27,000. Are they getting anything?
I'm trying to understand here, because part of it, as I was reading through this, is that are they getting money from DEQ already?
It looks like they indicate they're getting $11,000 from DEQ.
So, Madam Chair, could I point out right off the top, there's staff time for a Mid-Atlantic SOS coordinator at $6,000. Fringe benefits for said coordinator at $2,000. There's some staff travel time for $1,150. And I don't want to pick on anyone being out in the sun, but their hats for $1,000, that seems a little bit not exactly necessary. One could provide one's own hat, in my opinion.
It must be a special hat. Okay, was there anything here got $19,000 left.
So, should you decide to fund the proposal, staff would recommend subtracting the staff time, the fringe benefits, the hats, the car magnets, the car decals, and the staff travel, which would leave you with $15,450 should you choose to fund the remaining aspects of the proposal.
Madam
This
Chair,
would only leave $4,000 for everything else that's left.
should we just park this one for right
I
now?
think so. And all these others are kind of big, too. Lewis Ginter Botanical Garden is requesting $10,000 for revitalization of Wick Lake. This revitalization will provide a community model for stormwater management that contributes to a cleaner Chesapeake Bay and educates the public on ways to mitigate stormwater runoff and create a healthier watershed. It would bring Wick Lake up to best management practices for stormwater mitigation. What's the recommendation going to be there?
Given the lack of clarity on what the grant funding would go towards within the $3.5 million budget, staff could not recommend funding for this proposal.
Okay.
This is a nonprofit, right? So again, I mean, this is a possibility for someone who represents Henrico to put in a budget amendment to request dedicated funding for this.
Okay.
So I'm going to make a motion to not fund.
Second.
Moved and seconded that Lewis Ginter Botanical Garden not be funded at this time. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Okay, so the next one is from the Mariners Museum Park, requesting $10,000 to serve 1,000 Newport News Public Schools ninth graders with free environmental enrichment in the 2024-25 school year. Mariners Lake Stewards Program. They are committed to removing barriers for students. They have a reputation and potential for delivering quality programs and filling in the gap in local environmental providers while meeting the Virginia Department of Education standards and improving Newport News Public Schools student performance in environmental science. And again, requesting $10,000.
And was there a staff recommendation on this?
Staff recommended fully funding this proposal, and I recognize we're running out of money, so.
I mean, it looks like it's a good program. And they are, I mean, it's 10,000 out of 70,000, so they're coming up with other money and staff time and everything else. And it's also going to support, what, 1,000 students? Which is really very significant. Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we fund this.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the Mariners Museum and Park be funded at $10,000. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we're now down to a little bit of money,
About 9,000 left.
Okay. So we know we can't fund James River Association at $10,492, which they're requesting to engage the public to become stewards of the watershed and educate the public on river conditions and the risks and concerns to consider when participating in river-based recreation. What is the recommendation on this one?
The recommendation was for full funding of this application.
For the remaining ones, let's just go through and see what the recommendations would have been. Like for Rose Boxerwood Education Association, funding to sustain 2 programs that already teach hundreds of local elementary and middle school youth how to care for the Bay. They were asking $10,710.
What was y'all's recommendation?
That one, included staff time stipends and substitutes, so with that, those items subtracted, it was $6,100.
It was how much?
$6,100 remaining for Boxerwood.
In the town of Ashland.
Town of Ashland was asking to support their, again, required permit items, so I did not recommend any funding for that proposal.
Okay, so let's take that one out. Let's do it.
I'll go ahead and move to decline that one, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we decline the town of Ashland's proposal. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Blue Ridge.
Blue Ridge Land Conservancy, again, included staff time. I subtracted that amount, which left $29.50 for that one.
Okay. And Nansemond River, they're here, is 20,000.
Yes, I recommended 14,000 for the boat trips, instruments, oysters, and printing costs. There was curriculum expansion and update at $6,000 described or listed in the budget, which I interpreted as staff time because there wasn't a greater explanation.
Thank you for your consideration. My name is Ben Cross. I'm the new executive director at Museum Preservation Alliance, so I'm here answering any questions. This was my first time filling this grant opportunity out, and I think expansion was we were adding a map or changing the maps. So our third graders received the boxes, so we can take. So our watershed program, many things. Does it work?
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So our Watershed Explorer program has been happening for the last 12 years. And so we focus on 1,100 third graders in Suffolk Public Schools. That's 11 schools, as well as around 1,071 middle school seventh graders. And then in high schools, we focus on ecology clubs and leadership building that they actually go back and help teach and get internships through our program. So in third grade, they receive these boxes bringing the wetlands and the watershed into their classroom, and we bring an interactive experience with aquatic life, and they receive a map because we think it's important that they see. That includes all of the elementary schools, all of where they might live in our city, so they can begin to gain a sense of place and what part of the watershed they live in, and then just explaining the things that they cross over every day are part of a living, breathing world that they are a part of. And this is all done by a local artist and educator. And then we have volunteers, a huge group of volunteers that really come in as an army in all grades that kind of wrap around the students because they either had experience in environmental or engineering programs or education, and they want to help us build the next generation of environmentalists. And then in seventh grade, we ask for your assistance with our field experience, where we have a field experience at a local park, and they get in the water. We can handle 200 students a day, and we do that 3 times in the spring and 3 times in the fall, as well as a boat trip experience through the Chesapeake Bay Foundation.
The same week this grant was due, we received information that the Chesapeake Bay Foundation boat was not available and that we would have to find another source, which we went to JRA, and they would be available, but it would jump the cost from $4,500 to closer to $16,000 because it's not as supplemented. So we weren't sure of all those details that week, but we now know what we're looking at for the spring. But we cover the whole city of Suffolk. There's not a program doing what we do in the city of Suffolk, and we really could not do it without this funding.
And again, how many kids do you serve?
In third grade, there is 1,100. In seventh grade, there's about 1,071. In high school, it normally ends up being about 100 in the ecology program. And then we also do homeschool groups and public groups through our ecology camps. And that ends up being, it's about 3,000 people that we reach through this education program.
Ran out of money.
Do you want a map?
Does the map provide directions to more funding?
I could easily provide you direction. But it is essential to what we do.
Can we put down the $14,000 from the staff recommendation and then go through the rest of them and see where we end up?
Yeah.
Thank you for that consideration.
Thank
I
you.
know these
Thank
are
you.
hard discussions.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's really great that the program has gotten a lot more information with people wanting to be able to do these type of things. Okay, 54.
For Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District.
Staff did not recommend funding for this project due to the unclear audience for the patch program, how the audience would be reached, and then obviously Scouts already has patch programs, so it's unclear how those would mesh in with the proposal.
Okay, so let's officially,
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and move to decline the request.
Second.
moved and seconded that Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District be declined for funding at this time. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And Harbor Point Community Church.
Staff recommendation was no funding for this proposal and recommending that they work with a local nonprofit to develop their project proposal.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded that Harbor Point Community Church not be recommended for funding at this time. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that takes us to Keep Virginia Beautiful, requesting $7,000.
And staff recommendation was $5,000 for the supplies only.
And I have to ask, I mean, is this not something that would just be funded through the normal budget process?
For Keep Virginia Beautiful?
Right.
They're an independent nonprofit, so they are
Okay.
not, yeah,
So
they
it's
are
not
not
associated
funded.
with the Virginia Tourism Corporation?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right. So $5,000.
And the Greater Reedville Association, Reedville Fishermen's Museum.
And staff did not recommend funding this proposal.
And what was the reason for that?
It was unclear how the boat building would support bay restoration.
Okay, so I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the Greater Reedville Association, Reedville Fishermen's Museum not be recommended for funding at this time. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so
So we've got 10, 23, 28, $28,000. And we've got 9 left. Right. So that puts us at like 19 that we're over, and that doesn't include the two or three that are
Right,
sitting there
three,
in the
yep.
parking lot, which are each, I think, $20,000 apiece.
Right, exactly. I think if we go back to the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, I think we could probably dispense with that one.
Which number is that, Madam Chair?
The Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, they were requesting $15,960 for like rain barrel workshops and pet waste stations, cigarette receptacles.
Oh, I see. It's number 29.
Yeah.
So make a motion to not fund it?
Second.
Moved and seconded to recommend not funding the Hampton Roads PDC request. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
How much do we have left?
We have 9,000 left, and we had, what did I just say? We had 27 or 28,000 in outstanding request. So we've got 10, 6, and 14. That's 33, 38. So we have 38 outstanding and 9 left.
And that's not counting these.
No, no. I mean, one approach would be to look at everything and then just prorate everybody's award based upon how much we have. So if we ended up at whatever it is, then we just probably end up trimming 20% off of everybody's to give everybody something, would be one approach. Or we make the difficult decisions of not funding some of these at all, and that still doesn't count those two, which I want to say are
This
about
is actually three.
three, okay, each one at about $20,000 each.
Now, this was a big one. This one was 27,000. And what was the recommendation on Isaac Walton League of America?
And so what was your final recommendation? It's number 46. I mean, if we approve that one, then that puts us
And
6.
what about Amherst County Public Schools? Theirs is 21. We
20
just dropped them down like a,
That was 22.4, right? That was number 26. What's the staff recommendation on that one?
all of these are like significant amounts.
I think the staff recommended approving it.
Uh, 26, 24-026. But what was the staff recommendation? Wow.
Madam Chair, can I make a suggestion? In the spirit of trying to fund as many organizations as possible, I did note we have recommendations. We fully funded 2 projects. I hate to take away from an organization, but we do have Rivanna Conservation Alliance, number 32 and 33.
Right.
Would there be any appetite to consider keeping the first one, 32, because that's the one that touches the students, and perhaps consider eliminating the second one in the spirit of trying to make funding available to as many organizations as possible?
I don't have a problem.
I don't have a problem with that, Annie. I haven't looked through it. I mean, are there any other
Where we did
duplicate?
2.
I mean, if there are, we should.
32 and 33 are the same organizations. I think that's the only duplicate, because Friends of the Rappahannock only submitted 1 this year, so I don't see a second one for them.
I mean, there's definitely a degree of fairness in that approach.
So that would basically free up 8,500.
Correct.
I would make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of that, please say aye.
And that's a motion to strike funding 33.
Yes. So that gives us how much?
Well, that would give us, by my calculation, about 17,500 left. And we've talked about 6,000 for one of these and 22 for the other. So, I mean, it still leaves us $20,000 short, and that's not even talking about the ones that are at the end. If we did that and we funded the other, and so I don't have the, you have the list, right? So what happens if we add in the ones that we've talked about? How much do we end up being over? Because we're looking at 254. I believe so.
Madam Chair, if we were to go back and add the last few applications that we discussed, that would put us at $279,744.17. So about 25,000? included the 15,000 for Isaac Walton League, the 6,100 for Boxerwood.
So it does include those.
Mhm.
So it includes number 46,
In-
the 15,000.
Yes, it includes the 5,000 for Keep Virginia Beautiful.
What number is that?
Oh, sorry, 56. And the 2950 for 52 Blue Ridge. I believe that was,
That's 14,000 for the housing one?
yes. No,
So that's Goochland and Amherst still, right? Schools, okay.
Which then means that if we were to, if I'm doing the math right, then even with what we've already approved, we'd have to go back and to get to the 279 and cover everybody, we'd have to cut everybody else's by 10%, I think is the number that I'm seeing. So I'm just picking one. So number 25, Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, instead of getting 10, would get 9. And that would then allow us to spread the wealth or spread the pain. And again, that doesn't include the two that you have.
But we still have the
'Cause-
large numbers for.
Because if we add those, then it's just going to reduce the amount for everyone else.
So how many projects did we say yes to?
And we're counting Isaac Walton League now at 15,000? Because that one
If we're gonna say yes to them, let's count the number that we've said yes to.
okay. Do you have that number? Because I didn't do a good job keeping track early.
And let's include Amherst.
Okay, so there's a total of 57 projects. We said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Madam Chair, it looks like we said yes to 37 organizations or applicants, not including the ones that we just added in after we revisited.
Not including which ones?
Not including the last few that we just discussed. So
it
starting with,
It doesn't include Blue Ridge.
yeah, correct, or Isaac Walton, starting with them, moving down. So Isaac Walton, Boxerwood, Blue Ridge, Nansemond, and Keep Virginia Beautiful.
Because we've not taken an official vote on those yet.
Correct.
Okay, so with the ones that have been improved, that totals how much?
Madam Chair, I could go back and add, but the ones that have been improved, that was everything less of 9,000. That's where we were stuck with the 9,000.
That was where we were at, like 245.
Yes.
you tell me again what we did for number one? I just didn't take notes on those.
For number one,
But you didn't count the one that we just said that we're pulling up, right?
It would take out the 8,500,
We took out that one.
right? Which should put us at 237.
Madam Chair, that's been taken out, so they're at 0, rejected.
So it is
So it's a-
accounting for that change
Yes.
already.
How many projects have we officially approved?
I believe it was 37.
37, okay. So if we, and if we want to include the remaining projects, how many is that? How many do we have left? That we have not officially approved. Which one? We did not.
49.
Yeah, 49, I have a line where, between 48 and 49, where we approved the Mariners Museum,
We did a Mariners Museum, yes.
and then everything
The last one.
below, or from 49 onward, we've not actually taken a vote on, other than the ones that we said we were not going to. Those, there were 4 in there.
We have not done 49, 50, 52, 53.
Or
Or
56.
56. And the other two. Those are the original ones. Did you add all those up? The ones that are left.
I mean, I think that she had said that with what,
So for James River Association, the recommendation was for the full amount?
Number 49, yes.
so I think you said we get from 245 to 279 by adding these in here?
And not including the other two. All right, so if we want to fund the ones that are remaining, then we need to go back and trim. Right.
Yeah, prorate.
So my suggestion would be to prorate. So how much do you want to prorate?
Are we still assuming that we're just not doing these 2 large ones?
Well, that's a decision we need to make. Are we not doing those two?
And which two were those again?
We have Richland County Public Schools, that request was for 20,930.
Both of these are brand-new applicants.
Right. They're both brand new.
I mean, I could make, and both of them involve the James River Association. Right, am I looking, yeah. I mean, you could make a compelling argument for their legislators to submit budget amendments for both of those.
Madam Chair, I agree with that suggestion, based on the fact that while I hate, it makes me sick to not give money to schools for field trips and such, I feel like these are two brand-new, first-time applicants that unfortunately, because they are new, don't have a proven track record of successful execution of their programs. So I would be in support of that recommendation to decline both of those at this time.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded that the proposals coming from Houston and Amherst not be approved at this time,
And I would just,
regretfully.
yeah, and I would just encourage in whatever letter that you encourage them to reach out to their local legislators and ask them to submit a budget amendment through the legislative process. We're dealing with $254,000, and the state budget is $177 billion.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Okay, so that puts us down to those last few remaining proposals.
So, Madam Chair, can I make a blanket motion that we accept the remaining ones at the staff recommendation levels, and we vote on that? And then I'd like to make a second motion to have the staff prorate the amounts to be allocated based upon.
Let's do the first motion first. Okay, that we accept.
I'll second the first motion.
Okay. The motion is to accept the remaining proposals to include Nansemond River, James River Association, Boxerwood Education Association, Blue Ridge Land Conservancy. Am I missing anything?
Keep Virginia Beautiful.
Keep Virginia Beautiful. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
At the staff recommendations.
At the
Aye.
staff recommendations.
Aye.
Aye.
And then my second motion, Madam Chair, would be to empower the staff to make prorated adjustments to all of the recommendations to provide funding to all of the approved projects. I'm hoping that makes sense.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that adjustments be made to fund each of these projects that are prorated adjustments, and allow the staff to make those prorated adjustments. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed?
And Madam Chair, if I can then just make one, can staff then provide us with what that
Yes.
final prorated amount is?
Yes.
Because there was a lot of kind of moving pieces, but I think that that's our intent.
And we got much less than we normally would have to work with, too.
Yeah, that was really
this time
surprising.
around, yeah.
Madam Chair, can I make a suggestion with regard to that? Do we, the members of the committee, have the authority to place a cap on the amount an organization can request in one application?
Can we do that?
Madam Chair, it's up to the committee to set the guidelines for the applications or applicants, so you do have the authority.
Make a suggestion, I would say $15,000, because as we are looking at diminished resources, anyone who's making a request over $20,000 is already asking for 10% of the whole pool of funding.
Right, right.
So that's where I came up with the 15.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation, because I was actually surprised when I saw this
Yeah.
total amount of money. Because we were kind of flush last year.
Because the last couple of years that we've done it, it's gone up each year. And that's one of those things where it's kind of interesting. Is this just, are people not renewing these licenses? Or, did last year, did they buy like the 2-year? And now we're in a lull period, and so next year people will renew for a 2-year term and there'll be more money available.
And then may I
Yeah,
just
That's a good recommendation.
thank you. Do I need to move to,
I would.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt advertisement of a $15,000 cap for applications.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we cap the amount of grant requests at $15,000. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Thank you.
And then, Madam Chair, may I just make a comment? Food for thought for our state legislators. I started counting along, and I noted at least 5 applications just from local soil and water conservation districts. So if there's anything
It's usually more.
that can, but if there's anything that can be done to consider as a whole across the state, there does seem to be some needs there that aren't being addressed. Thank you very much.
And you bring up a good point, because I would have thought that the local soil and water conservation districts should be going to their local legislators first and saying, because we get this from the towns and we get it from the counties. Why wouldn't we get input from them as well that said, we need these budget requests? And you don't know if you don't ask. And
Because I actually noticed that there were fewer, there were a lot more, I thought, last time around from the soil and water conservation districts.
It is.
Multiple requests.
Yes, it is traditional to see a lot of applications from them in this source of funding. Something the commission has been working on is increasing their administration and operations funding, which we have been working on diligently through time, or at least placing a base for it in the budget. But I believe you will see some budget amendments this year on this topic from those local districts working with their state association to increase their baselines.
And it may just be that there needs to be, and I think this is probably what you're saying, additional baseline funding for the soil and water conservation districts, because I know for many years there was not adequate funding for the extension agents, and the agricultural best management practices were only started to really get funding more fully in like 2020 and 2021. And so this is probably another area that we're playing catch-up in.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming. We're down to public comment. Anybody?
We appreciate the difficulties you all went through, and feel it's as equitable as it can be. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I appreciate you all coming. And if no further business to come before our committee, we will be adjourned.